Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. This is a Ukraine War news update, the first part thereof for the 19th of September 2025. And we have the Ukrainian General Staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before, and it's quite an interesting set of statistics that they're claiming. 1,150 is considerably above the personnel loss stats that we normally see. And yet, we have 0 tanks, 1 troop-carrying AFV, and only 44 vehicles and fuel tanks. So this would suggest that there has been a large set of personnel losses, irrespective of equipment, which would maybe entail strikes on bases, troop accumulations. I don't know. There's something funky going on there. We can make speculations. We can look at a couple of other data points and see whether that makes sense. 17 artillery systems is slightly below where we've seen that as well. That's below the daily average. 1 multiple launch rocket system, a single anti-aircraft warfare system, and 3 pieces of special equipment to boot. That is a bit of a mixed bag of nuts there. Right, let's go and look at some other data points. Breaking news that there was 1,000 bodies of Ukrainian service people returned from the Russian side as part of a coordinated repatriation effort. Law enforcement and forensic experts will conduct examinations because, let's face it, not all of them are Ukrainian when they come back. There have been a number of Russian bodies in amongst them to identify the remains and provide closure for families. We also hear that there are 20,000 Cubans supposedly fighting for Russia in Ukraine, according to Suspilna, citing Ukrainian intelligence. That's a phenomenal amount of Cubans. We know that a number of Cubans have gone to fight for Russia. We had heard earlier on in the war that an awful lot of Nepalese were fighting. I think that was overcooked. There were claims initially of some 14,000 Nepalese fighting. But I would imagine there are probably quite a few Cubans fighting in Russia. Whether there would be 20,000, I would be pretty suspicious. But either way, the claims are that there are a lot of Cubans fighting for the Russians, and that gets them out of a bit of a personnel bind. And it's also potentially less of an issue if these soldiers die. I assume they wouldn't be paying any kind of compensation to the family of these people, where they would have to do that if they were Russian. So there's possibly an advantage of using foreign soldiers in this way. Now, US Florida representatives warned at an 18th of September briefing that Cuba also helps Moscow evade sanctions with China, Iran, and North Korea. So Cuba possibly playing quite an integral part in the war. A Ukrainian defender spent 3 years in Russian captivity with a bullet in his heart. A Ukrainian cardiac surgeon, Boris Todorov, said that the warrior had defended Azovstal after being wounded, was taken prisoner in 2022, and he was exchanged a few months ago, and has had a bullet in his heart the entire time. It hasn't caused any problems by all accounts. Fortunately, it didn't damage anything. Just incredible story there. And I'm sure this war will just throw out, after it is over, so many insane stories that will be captured in many different media. Okay, Russia prepared. This is Vladimir Zelensky, and there have been these different claims about whether Russia is building up in the Kursk region for a massive attack. Andrew Perpetua saying, look, there are an absolute ton of soldiers there now, and irrespective of what you hear, that's what's happening, and other people agreeing with that. And then others saying that Russia really doesn't have the ability to mount a large-scale offensive, which is actually what the president's saying. So this is Volodymyr Zelensky saying, Russia prepared offensive operations along 4 main axes this year. Sumy, Novopavlivka, so that's just south of Pokrovsk. That's where they are having success at the moment, I would say. Pokrovsk and Zaporizhia. The Sumy operation has already failed. Russia suffered heavy losses, especially in manpower, and has redeployed forces to other fronts. Ukrainian armed forces inflicted greater losses on them there. I think we might name that the exact area in the next 2 days. So a bit of cryptic reference there. As a result, Russia is left with 2 operations, but it has lost so much manpower that it cannot deliver strong additional actions in the above mentioned directions. I believe that, as of now, they lack the strength for large-scale offensives. It's a pretty big claim. So the idea that they are mounting up for a huge attack in Pokrovsk seems to not accord with what Zelensky's saying. Now, could he be playing some kind of OPSEC role here? Is he trying to downplay something for PR reasons? Or, or is it just not true or not the case that the Russians are able and in the position to mount a huge offensive? Now, Colonel Valentin Manko, head of Ukraine's Assault Troops Command, says Russian forces near Dobropilya have been cut off for 3 weeks. 3 encirclements have formed, a small one near Kucherev Yar, a medium one around Volodymyrivka, and a large one previously unreported, likely to be the Rozhina-Rodinsky line. So this is like, we know of like pretty much 2. I don't know. Yeah, so here we go. Doesn't quite show it here. So this is the top of the bunny ear. There were 2 of these, but there's supposedly 1 left now. And then you've got this one here, and then a larger one further to the south, that is to the east of Pokrovsk. Well, actually northeast. It's coming along to the west to try and encircle Pokrovsk from the top. That could be what's being referred to, but waiting for more confirmation there. So, okay, worth taking that into account. Then you get these sorts of anecdotes coming from Russian soldiers. They're whining that Ukraine is destroying them. I'm not going to read all of this. There's quite a lot in here. The translation and probably his writing makes it a bit garbled in places. Starts off, Maxime, good morning. This is Alexander Zaborovsky. They arrived from the DPR at night. We were in the old Ugledarska. I think is that Vuhledar? We were at our guy's place in Avdiivka, and it's all the same stuff everywhere, expletive. I won't write about the losses, otherwise they'll bring in discredit. So he's saying there are significant losses, one would infer. The situation outside of Toretsk on Pokrovsk area is especially effing awesome. Now, I think that's awesome sarcastically, even though the Russians are having some success around Toretsk, not they're having some trouble around Pokrovsk. So, yeah, the already famous bunny ears, guys, they last more than 20 kilometers, but, so this is why I think it's sarcastic, saying around there it's effing awesome. You've got 20 kilometers of bunny ears, but the supply depots are now 50 kilometers from the LBS. Closer is not an option. They are being blown to pieces by FPVs. From these warehouses, it's another 15 kilometers for a motorcycle, at most a Niva or something similar, then only on a motorcycle or legs, pounding everything that moves. Right now, deliveries are where the biggest losses are, both in equipment and in people. If earlier they called 1 or 2 roads the road of death, now it is the whole space. A maximum of 2 people go on an assault, and it is not possible that 2 of the 2 will reach the point. RB's problem number 2. These days, the Ukrainians work in 6 or even 7 bands, meaning an effing Niva, so that's a car. You need 6 or 7 RBs to have any chance of moving. I think that means in order to not be hit by drones and in needing to jam the drones, you need 6 or 7 blockers to block the different bands that the Ukrainians are using. And then complains about where their own industrial drones have gone. I presume he means the big Baba Yaga drones. And then, lots more complaints about everything, bureaucracy and drones and issues and costs and so on and so forth. This means everything is compensated only by manpower, which there's nothing to replace it with. So he's saying that we don't have the reserve troops. So then how does this fit in with the idea that they're massively, well, maybe they don't have reserves for that particular area because they're stockpiling, building up huge reserves to do a massive attack? I don't know. Or it's not true. He says there's nothing to replace our manpower with, only by redeploying from one direction to the other. So having to rob Peter to pay Paul. This is why troops have come from Sumy and Kherson to supply the counter in Pokrovsk, where they've been encircled. I've been so on and so forth. That's all you need to know. So interesting little anecdote there. Now we are going to have a tale of 2 elite drone units. So remember, Magyar's birds were the Ukrainian initial awesome drone force. And then the Russians copied them with Rubicon, and Rubicon were responsible for the Ukrainians capitulating completely and having a somewhat disastrous withdrawal from Kursk, losing quite a lot of equipment because Rubicon started absolutely hammering their logistic supplies, and there were very few routes in and out of the Kursk sector. Now, Russia's elite Rubicon unit, drone unit, says Euromaidan Press, is reversing Ukraine's drone advantage. So, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty investigation reveals the secretive formation's commander and structure that took out 70% of one Ukrainian brigade's drone operators in a single week. So these guys are good. That is not good news. They are doing to the Ukrainian drone units thank you very much, Ivan, what Ukrainian drone units have been doing to the Russians previously, which is changing the point value for drone operators, and then that incentivizes Ukrainian drone operators to hit the Russian drone operators big time. Key findings from this report. Commander, Colonel Sergei Budnikov, 37, former artillery and marine officer, so they know who heads them. Facilities include Patriot Park near Moscow, used for training and testing drones. Formation established mid-2024, shortly after Belarus became Russia's defense minister. There's at least 7 detachments, 130 to 150 personnel in each, specializing in drone attacks, reconnaissance, and electronic warfare. And the recruitment entails offering bonuses of up to 3 million rubles, $36,000, to attract skilled personnel. And so they are really effective. They were first came to prominence in the Kursk Oblast, forcing the Ukrainians to retreat from the region, and so that their own troops could regain control. Rubicon units now systematically target drone operators who fly drones from distant positions away from the front lines. One brigade reportedly lost 70% of their drone operators in a single week due to Rubicon's precision strikes. Experts warn that unless Kyiv develops more advanced countermeasures, Russia's elite drone force will remain a persistent threat across multiple sectors of the front. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is Magyar's birds, his entire unmanned system forces. Robert Brovdy, Margyar as he's called, is in charge of the unmanned systems forces, or SPS group. He says it will make up 5% of the total number of defense forces in Ukraine. Currently, there's 2.2% of the defense forces are in, I presume, the unmanned systems forces. It will be 5%. Then we will close 100% of the front line at all 3 levels of depth: the operational depth, the tactical depth, and the strategic depth. So, actually, it's kind of mixed up there. It should go tactical as a small, fighting over a hill. We're going to charge over there to do this. Operational, whole region, maybe Pokrovsk operation, and then strategic, how you do the entire war. And we will cross the mark of 50% of the total volume of destroyed and hit enemy targets. Otherwise, I will resign and return to my native brigade, albeit as a bathhouse operator. So he's putting a threat out there. We don't do this, maybe not a threat, just I will be held accountable for what I am claiming I will achieve. Now, I thought they were already over 50%. I thought drones were, but maybe those are drones throughout the whole armed forces. So it's maybe like taking it all under, I don't know, under the SBS or the unmanned systems forces. So I don't know where that 50% sits, how that's calculated. Okay, so then we're going to go and look. Well, first of all, we're going to go to vast amounts of equipment. This is, I don't know where. Oh no, I do know where this is. Snagost. So this is up in the Kursk region. If you, I'll show you where it is. So Snagost is up in the Kursk region. So here's a Sumy area where there's lots of activity going on at the moment. Ukraine is having some success. Then you had sort of Koronovo up here, and you had Glushkovo, Koronovo, there it is, and Snagost is just, should be somewhere around here if I remember correctly. So yeah, there it is, Snagost. So Snagost is, this was one of the main roads that connected areas on the Kursk front here. So it's around here that the video is taken from. and it's pretty incredible. So Russian forces filmed moving equipment along the so-called Road of Death near Snagost, Kursk. Footage shows dozens of vehicles, mostly Euro trucks, but also an ISDM Zenledeli, which is a mine-throwing system, UAZ vans, larders, and other scrap metal grade transports. But just the sheer volume of equipment here. We'll look at this. What's also worth noting is what these Russians are driving on. And here, so there's your mine laying bit of kit, but also other vehicles all around there, trucks and cars, FPV drone monitor there, and he's driving a buggy. So that's probably a Desert Cross 1000-3 or something similar. And here they are just driving past more destroyed bits of kit, just huge amounts of vehicles that have been destroyed, trying to deliver equipment and personnel from A to B here. And yeah, just more equipment. I find it just phenomenal looking at stuff like this. And of course it cuts there and there's more equipment that they are driving towards. So just gives you a sense of how many bits of kit are blown up. That's just one small bit of road. So when you see these loss lists or general stuff figures, and there's over 100 vehicles and fuel tanks lost in a single day, you can start to build up a rationale for that being a pretty accurate claim. Now, Ukrainian Special Operations Forces struck a logistics hub of Russia's 810th Marine Brigade in Kursk. So these are the guys that were in Krinky, now up in Kursk, and I think are also fighting elsewhere as well. They have been hit up in Kursk. The strike hit a supply base, ammo depots, and concealed weapons and equipment at that site. The 810th is linked to war crimes, including the execution of Ukrainian POWs. So that's caught on thermal imagery here, a number of explosions at that base. And I think the Ukrainians have been really working on targeted strikes at the Russians to stop them being able to be as effective on the front lines. I really do think this has been a concerted effort by the Ukrainians over the last few months. So they're doing the long-range strikes on refineries. They're really starting to use medium-range strikes effectively on bases. There's just one example, and you can see multiple strikes as well. That's not just the odd explosion there. That's just loads of explosions happening at that base. Then we hear that a Ukrainian drone strike hit an ammunition depot belonging to Russia's 17th Tank Regiment near Bodanivka, Luhansk region. Remember yesterday we also heard about sabotage killing 17 officers. So it's these kinds of activities that really stop the Russians from being able to act as efficiently and effectively as possible. So in Luhansk, ammo detonations lasted all day, with firefighting efforts only beginning by evening. 5 vehicles likely used for transport were also destroyed. And then we have here actual first-hand imagery of another base being hit. A Russian soldier comments on the situation after a Ukrainian attack. We're screwed here. Everything's on fire. Generators, dugouts, buggies, motorbikes. It's an effing disaster. And again, just complete destruction of a Russian base, troop accumulation, whatever it is. A lot of equipment there. But I do wonder whether the Ukrainians are hitting bases with personnel in quite a bit as well. And that's why you've got a high number in that category overnight. Then this is worth noting, Ukraine, and not for the first time that the Ukrainians have done this, landed on the Tendriska Spit. So you've got the Kimburn Spit just opposite Ochakiv on the both Dnipro and Bug River estuary as a join and come out there. In fact, let's go back to the map, might as well. It's open. So the Tendriska Spit previously it had been attacked. I mean, we're talking, I don't know, was it a year ago? Maybe within the last year, it was attacked and it was a bit of a disaster, and the Ukrainians lost some serious troops there, I think. So this is a Kimburn Spit and this is a Tendriska Spit, and we've seen previously strikes on here, possibly using missiles sent from TB2 Bayraktar TB2 drones. Some were claiming HIMARS strikes, and it might well be in HIMARS range actually, so it could well have been HIMARS. But strikes of troop accumulations that were training on this spit, and they were pretty disastrous. Then we had, so that was good from the Ukrainians. Then I think there was maybe 80 people attacking or something, boats landing here, and that was disastrous, and they lost some special forces and boats and whatnot. But since then, they've actually done some incisive strikes here and seem to have landed, done some stuff, and got away without any losses, arguably. So here, the claim is that Ukrainian military intelligence operatives ambushed and destroyed a Russian DT-10 Vityaz tracked transporter on the Tendriska Spit. The vehicles used to move troops, weapons, and supplies to Russian positions. That's a pretty risky mission to go and just take out a single tracked vehicle. So I would be surprised if that was fully their target. I'm going to turn the sound off. Nonetheless, here they are attacking a bit of kit and doing an operation on the Spit. But a few days before, they say here they were attacking. So I imagine that's visibly what you can see. The leftovers, I assume they would have done more than just blow up that one vehicle. That's a too high a risk. You might as well just get a TB2 drone to just strike that or something. But it's the idea that it was ambushed, so I assume that they would have taken out soldiers in so doing as well. Now, I think the attention to Crimea is probably continuing without us really knowing about it. We've had primary drone videos suggesting that the Ukrainians have done a really good job of taking out Russian air defenses and radars there. Astra is reporting that Russian radar station was attacked in annexed Crimea, injuring 2 servicemen. On September the 13th, drones attacked a Russian radar station near Olenevka. Preliminary reports indicate the radar's protective dome was damaged. It's Olenevka on Cape Turkenhout, which is the very western tip here. Might be somewhere around here or somewhere on the way down from there. Yeah, Olenevka, that's exactly where it is. So, God, it's sad I know that better than I know my own county. Okay, so you've got installations still being hit there. In fact, they've landed. You remember they landed on Cape Turkenhout. I think it was at Mayak here. They landed, actual troops there and did a mission broadly successfully as far as I can work out. And that was a bit of a wake-up call for the Russians that the Ukrainians were able to get that far to do a mission all the way down to Crimea. Anyway, that was some time ago. Right, we're going to go on to distant strikes, and so far we know that 86 drones were sent into Ukraine, 71 of which were taken out. That's a success rate of 83%. That's not bad for a lower number of drones. That leaves 15 hits by Russian drones in 6 places, while 2 more places were affected by debris. Ukraine has said that they could soon deploy 1,000 interceptor drones per day. Remember, they said they needed 1,600 drones, interceptor drones for 800 drones. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio was hinted at. The challenge lies in the number of ground control systems, radars and related components, some of which utilize artificial intelligence for precision targeting, according to Defense Minister Denis Shmyhal. So that's a really big claim there. Max 25 adds a little bit. The number was needed to counter up to 800 drones that the Russians could launch per night. Shmyhal added that he could not yet disclose how many interceptor drones the Ukrainian armed forces have, but they've massively ramped them up. Okay, on to the actual attack. Last night, Kiev, I think, was targeted a fair bit. There's a video of a drone getting taken out by air defense already over the city, so that's pretty worrying. Really, you want to be taking those drones out before they get to the city. So drone debris fell in multiple locations across Kiev after air defense interceptions. In Shevchentsky district, the trolley bus power network was damaged, according to the city military administration. And Tim White says, following the overnight attack by Russia, I am concerned about how little information there is in Kiev. We've been told, all we've been told is that the cashless payment systems for tram, trolley bus and funicular rides are affected due to drone strikes. Last night, the thread I reported of various explosions in the capital, including the mayor of Kiev emitting a hit, yet not one local channel this morning has any photos, which is very unusual. Now, I said to you before, when that kind of thing happens, it's quite possible, probably quite probable, that they are covering up some actual strategic hit by the Russians, some decent strike on Ukrainian critical infrastructure or military targets. So that might have happened last night, but there weren't too many drones that succeeded getting through the Ukrainian defense, because there weren't like massive numbers of drones compared to what we have seen. Somewhere that has been targeted a lot over the last couple of days is Chernihiv. Smoke is rising over part of Chernihiv right now, says Tim White, after an explosion during the ongoing Russian drone attack. Yesterday, there were 130 explosions recorded in the region. So that has been definitely given some undue attention. Drones active above occupied Donetsk region. This was last night, no reports reporting, with additional drone alerts in Taganrog, Rostov-on-Don and Azov. So just to remind you, this is the Sea of Azov here. I should do this more often with a map, because I know what's in my head, but not everyone has that same understanding of the geography, although most of you probably do by now. That's the Sea of Azov. Here's Crimea. Here is, you got Mariupol, Berdyansk, and then you come on further to the east here and you get Taganrog before you get to Rostov-on-Don. So Berdyansk, Mariupol, Taganrog, Rostov-on-Don. This is a Rostov Oblast. It then comes down to the Krasnodar Oblast, and that's where there's been quite a bit of attention from Ukrainian drones over the last 24 hours. And then we see apparently Ukrainian drones have struck a critical railway communications facility in Rostov. So that looks like that's Rostov-on-Don, or it could just be the Rostov Oblast at large. I don't know. But it looks like some fairly concentrated critical infrastructure there and some quite wide scale issues going on there. So that's not just one small position there. That looks like really significant strikes on railway infrastructure. So that could have some decent effect. I'm just going to see actually if there is anything else to report from strikes, because it's usually at this time that it's all emerging. I'm a little bit late to it today. Right, okay. Analysis of video 800, which, okay, there's a video of the 810th regiment being attacked, which I showed you all those explosions. That's been geolocated to all of these locations. So actually key locations. All this happened in an area of 0.04 square kilometers next to the elevator in the village of Giri. Total of 19 hits were recorded. So really were quite a lot of hits on buildings and one miss. So that is pretty decent. So they really could have really hurt the 810th quite a lot in that strike. Then we had the one in Luhansk being hit. And then, we've got the 19th package of Russian sanctions as well. That's good. We've got Shmihal talking about 1,000 drones. So I think we're back to all the other stuff. Kupiansk direction looking pretty dodgy. Bit of a problem there. Nothing too much else to report. So let's get on to other bits and pieces. So Ukrainians can now voluntarily join the military if they are over 60. They weren't allowed to previously. Now, and I think this is a sign of how desperate the Ukrainians are, they need the soldiers. The Russians have been pulling in people of that age for some time. The Ukrainians now changing the rules so that they can do that. God, that's a good cup of tea. Service requires a 1-year contract, approval from commanders, and a fitness assessment by a military medical commission. So obviously it's not just anyone, you've got to be fit enough, but they need those people. And I would suggest that's a really good move as well. So you've got a demographic black hole in the 18 to 25 demographic categories, which means that they don't really want to mobilize those groups, which has caused a lot of consternation from people looking from the outside. But I understand why that is. Because you lose giving them skills, so when the war ends, you've got a whole massive set of cohorts of people that are lacking in numbers, lacking in skills, and won't be able to have a family because they're off in war, sitting in trenches, right? So that's why they're trying really hard to mobilize people above the age of 25, which is at the moment their cutoff, and they're introducing voluntary recruitment for people in the 18 to 25 range. And they're sweetening that with, I think stuff to do with getting an education and all sorts. So you can join, and we'll help you here and do this, and that's trying to not making people join up in that age group, but we definitely need people. If you want to join, we're not going to stop you. And then over 25, it's like, right, you're the main category, because that's where the demographic figures bulge. So particularly I can 40 to 50 range. That's probably why the average age has been claimed to be like 43 or whatever. But that's where they got most of the people that can join the army. And then now they're looking at up here where most populations used to go like this. Now it's like that, a few people at the top, lots in the middle, and loads of children. Now we have fewer children, not so many people in the middle, and actually loads of people more at the top. So our population pyramids look more like a population column. And so there's going to be quite a lot of people up here that if you can put them to good use. So it might not be that you're going to have a 65-year-old running around the trench lines, but if you can have a 65-year-old driving an air defense mobile unit, just driving the truck, then, why wouldn't you? So for me, this is perfectly reasonable. I have no problem with that at all. Kremlin, it depends how you use them. The Kremlin confirmed on September the 18th the resignation of Vladimir Putin's longtime associate, the deputy head of his administration, Dmitry Kozak. His departure, although not unexpected, has raised questions on the future of Russia's war in Ukraine. Wow. So I wonder what the impact of that will be. I'll need to look into that more. Time. Anton Gerashenko reports that Poland has closed its border with Belarus due to Zapad 2025, and I'm wondering whether they're going to open it now that Zapad 2025 has stopped the military exercise between Belarus and Russia. So they've closed the border due to that, due to military exercises by Russia and Belarus and Russian drones flying into Poland. This cuts off, and this is a key, and I reported this yesterday in my live update. This is why China's been pretty angry about this, because actually there's $25 billion a year trade routes that go through China and into the EU through Belarus, right? So Belarus is actually pretty important. If Poland closes that border down, you see that big thick orange line. So this big orange line comes up from China through Kazakhstan into Russia and then down into Belarus and through into Europe, and that helps to supply Europe. And if you close the borders, then that stops happening. So China is not happy. Russia is weighing a tax increase as economic pressures mount, according to Reuters. Russia's government is considering raising the VAT rate from 20% to 22% to reduce the budget deficit, according to Reuters. As well, we hear a suggestion from Russian State Duma Deputy Mikhail Matveyev proposing a 1% levy on bar and restaurant bills to support families of Russian soldiers, calling it both material and moral. It's a clear sign the Kremlin is feeling the financial strain of the war, turning to ordinary Russians as reserves dwindle. 1% levy on bars and restaurants, as well as a possible raise of the VAT, value-added tax on sales, from 20% to 22%. We hear that the website of Russia's second busiest airport, Pulkovo Airport in St. Petersburg, has been hacked. Web visitors are greeted with a message where maintenance is a euphemism. So that's happening. Trump has said now is not the time to demand a ceasefire from Putin. If necessary, I will take tough measures. We need to continue to put pressure on oil prices. We don't need to ask Putin for a ceasefire. We need to lower oil prices even more. If we succeed, the war will be over. Interesting. I mean, I can't believe the US refused to sign a resolution on peace in Gaza yesterday. Just insane. Anyway, currently Ukraine is not negotiating with Russia about ending the war, only about the humanitarian part, in particular the return of POWs, said Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council Rustem Umerov, the former defense minister. Watch out for certain videos you might see. So this is supposedly a tribute to Charlie Kirk and looking at kind of funeral arrangements, car motorcades and whatnot. I'm going to turn the sound off because I'll get hit for a copyright infringement for the music. But that is, I presume Charlie Kirk's wife, and RIP Charlie Kirk. But just beware. This video you see here is from Ukraine. RIP Charlie Kirk. Those are Cossack flags hanging off, and I think that's an Azov flag in yellow that you see go past. So just insane. They're co-opt imagery to show how sad people are about Charlie Kirk, and this is a Ukrainian soldier's funeral. There's the Azov flag and a Cossack flag there, and so on and so forth. It's just like, seriously, guys, sort it out. Did they just use footage from a Ukrainian soldier's funeral for Charlie Kirk? Yeah, certainly looks like it. And I'm going to leave you with a quote from one of the viewers, MG32162. Just, I thought it was an insight into the experience people have of the war in Ukraine. John, you do such a great job, but the world is becoming so depressing. The news is terrible every day, and there is no happiness or anything positive anymore. I'm British. My wife, who is Ukrainian, is returning from Ukraine tomorrow after visiting family. I have missed her deeply and worried so much about the last 2 weeks. I just want her home. I just want to switch off the news, switch off the world, and just love her and cuddle her and hope for a better future. I think that's a sentiment we can all understand, and that I do worry for the world at the moment, the state of the world. It looks like Ukraine is the only country that's truly, properly, kinetically fighting for democracy, whereas all around the world, even among democratic nations, there's backsliding that is insanely worrying, and I genuinely am concerned. Sometimes I do want to switch off the news myself, but I'm also obsessed with the news. And I hope I do an okay job in reporting it to you. I have my biases, of course, but let's remember the human element to all the news that happens and how it affects people, and people married to Ukrainians and worried about extended family members, worried about their other halves visiting, and so on and so forth. So thanks for reaching out there. I appreciate that. And I hope you have a wonderful reunion. In the meantime, guys, don't forget that we are supporting Ukraine through the car for Ukraine Autumn Harvest. ATP landing page, please go to that one, ATP Geopolitics, atpgeo.com/donate. We're almost at 10 grand. This is amazing. I'm going to say a big thank you to the latest donors, who are Jean Leblanc, awesome. Art Haynes, from New Zealand. Oh, mate, choice, mate. Awesome, eh? Nice one, Art. Oh, mate, you are awesome. Steve Edwards, thank you, Steve. Totally awesome from you. Jaap van der Velde, Ian Richardson, Greg S. All of these, Jaap, super generous. All of these very, very kind. Hart van Swy, Mike Braben, Constantino Martins, and Tim Dobbs, and then we're back down to where we were, and all the anonymous people as well. Thank you, and thank you for all your well-wishing on the donor wall. Please help out, atpgeo.com/donate. In the meantime, take care, everybody. Speak to you soon.